And we are live. What is going on, YouTube? It is your boy, Faithful to God. And tonight, we have another debunking. This is Danyaahla debunked again because he has no idea what he's talking about. So, a few days back, Danyaahla of MaccabeesTV made a response to my video in which I debunked a 2-minute portion of a presentation that he put out in 2016. Essentially, the presentation was making just demonstrably false claims. I mean, this stuff was just horrible. And his response was to essentially make an 8-minute response video to a 57-minute video, probably 54 if you include the portions where I kind of fell out, the audio cut out, and people couldn't hear me. But needless to say, the 57-minute video received a 8-minute response where 5 out of probably the 8 minutes, maybe even more, were essentially him just ad homing me, just disrespecting me. But I'm going to let you guys be the judge. I'm not going to play all the video, but I'm going to play significant portions of it. And I'm, of course, going to show the quote unquote salient points that he made, if he made any. I really didn't see any points. In fact, it's actually a self-refuting video, as you guys are going to see in a moment. But needless to say, I'm going to go ahead and play the video now. And I'll let this speak for itself. Actually, before I do that, I just want to say shout out to everybody out there who is watching. Definitely share the link. And without further ado, here we go. This is his response video.
It is my goal for this video to be less than 5 minutes, all right? Less than 5 minutes for me to address a clown on YouTube that's looking for attention, probably doesn't have a father, probably didn't have a father, so he's looking for attention. I apologize, let me just mute that real quick. Didn't have a father, probably looking for attention, and quite frankly, from the sound of your voice, you sound like you might like men. You're a man, but you sound like you might like men, but I'm not here to talk about that today. So
let me go ahead and stop this real quick. So number one, I most certainly am heterosexual, not homosexual. I absolutely do not like men. I absolutely love women. Number two, I most certainly had a father, and my father raised me right. I don't see where you're getting this idea from hearing my voice. That sounds really weird. I really don't know what to say about that. I don't see how that is even a plausible argument. But I mean, you know, it is what it is. All right, so I'm gonna keep playing this a little bit more.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen real quick, and I'm addressing a dude that I call faithful to the devil, because that's who this guy is. He's faithful to his master, the Caucasoid, which is nothing but the damn devil, right? So I did a presentation. Man, the presentation has to be about maybe 3-4 years ago. And everybody knows what I teach concerning British history, right? These clowns are just catching up to where I was 10 years ago, trying to understand what I was teaching 10 years ago. And let me be real clear. I come from One West, but some of the stuff I teach concerning British history, I surpass the elders in that. I'm gonna keep it real with you. I got books that they didn't have, but I'm not here to discuss that today. I'm here to discuss a clown that spent 57 minutes addressing me, only for me to take less than 5 to debunk his gay, homosexual, not showing his face behind. And since he don't show his face in his videos, I choose not to show mine in mine, but I have my face in many other.
I don't know if Danyaahla knows, but first and foremost, he continues to harp on this whole thing about me being gay, which is demonstrably false, and that I haven't showed my face. Well, let's go ahead and let's kill that from the rip, because this dude clearly hasn't seen my channel or my videos if he thinks that I have not shown my face. So let me go ahead and stop screen sharing here. If y'all just give me a second. I actually have a video on my channel that I think it was like a 4-hour video where I showed my face pretty much throughout the entire thing. So if anybody wants to know what I look like, if they haven't already seen me, most of y'all have seen me. Give me a moment. I will go ahead and put to rest that tomfoolery that he was talking about. Anybody that knows me knows I'm not gay. Not that I needed to defend that, because it's a foolish argument coming from a guy who makes tons and tons of foolish arguments. But here we go. It's your boy live in person. This is from the same video that he clearly didn't see on my channel. Not that I was expecting him to see it anyways. Hopefully you guys can see that. Can everybody see that? I just want to make sure everybody can see that. Here goes another one. Looking very Puerto Rican, I might add. And this is actually the video, The Hypocrisy of Hebrew Israelites. Faithful reveals his face. All he had to do was type in faithful reveals his face or faithful shows his face, and this would have been the first video to show up. But I mean, I don't expect a guy who doesn't do a really good job at researching to be able to do something as simple as typing in simple words or whatever the case may be, man. So so that's that. Let's go ahead and continue listening to this tomfoolery. Here we go.
Videos. Let's get right down to it, right? So what I'm gonna do right now, brothers and sisters, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm not going to be before you long. And pardon me for ranting, but sometimes you got to do this to these clowns because there's a lot of clowns on social media. All right. Here is a presentation that your brother priest Danyaahla gave many, many, many years ago. Right. And this is one of the slides that I gave in the presentation. And you have the fake woke conscious community that use this slide to try to use it against me and don't know what the hell they're talking about. And you have pedophile loving homosexual Christians that are also trying to use this slide against me. So let's get one thing straight right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to your master that you love so much, and I'm going to show you that what I teach didn't come from black Hebrew Israelites like you clowns like to say. You know who agrees with me? The so-called white man that calls himself a Jew. Pay attention, right? So I have a slide right here. And on the slide,
let me point out that the quote-unquote so-called white man doesn't agree with him. The reality is that the quote-unquote white man or so-called white man is the one who actually created the British argument that Danyaahla today is parroting. I'll repeat that again. It is the so-called white man who created the British argument that Danyaahla is parroting from One West. Why? Because Danyaahla more than likely learned it from one of the teachers at the school, and they in turn more than likely either learned it from someone else who read books on British Israelism or Christian identity, a movement that predates the One West school, the advent of that school, or they probably found it from someone else who was inspired by that. The point is, though, this argument predates Danyaahla, and they are not validating what he's saying. Rather, he unwittingly derived his argument from the very people that he would call quote unquote Edomites. But let's continue listening to this foolishness.
I break down the definition of what the word British actually means. The word British means man of the covenant. And I give you all the information right here on the screen where you can go and look into it yourself, because I'm being told in the video that I'm parroting something that I got from One West. No, my friend, everything that I learned at One West, I fact checked it. And now guess what? Your master that you love so much, the Caucasoid, is going to agree with me. Pay attention.
Watch how the quote unquote Caucasoid, the one that all I did was Google search. Watch what this quote unquote Caucasoid is actually going to say, and how this actually undermines Danyaahla's very own polemic. Watch how he, as the camps would say, cuts himself live on air. Watch this.
So if you look right here at bullet point number 2, I tell you the word Brit means covenant, and I give you the scriptures to back it up. Then in the next the next bullet point, number 3, I tell you the word ish refers to man in the scriptures. That's what it refers to. We know nowadays when somebody says that something is reddish, it means not really red. Bluish means not really blue. That's in modern terms. But when you go to the Bible, that word ish, or as we say in Lashawan Kodash, ayash, that refers to man. So when you see the word Brit-ish, that means man of the covenant. So the people in England that referred to themselves as British knew who they were. They knew that they were the people of the covenant, which is the people of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's what I taught years ago. The devil said I'm lying. And faithful to the devil says I'm lying. So now you know.
Oh, no, you are absolutely unaware of what you're talking about. I think you're sincere in your delusion. I think that you're absolutely positively delusional. But I truly, truly believe that, and you don't realize this, but this very video the one that you made is not only exposing your incognizance, your complete and utter incognizance of the Hebrew language. Not only is this exposing the fact that you don't know the basic rules of Hebrew syntax and grammar, it also proves that you did not fact check the claim that British means man of the covenant. Because if you actually knew basic Hebrew grammar and syntax, you would know that that is not plausible. But the very article you're about to read, Danyaahla, is going to refute you. And I want everybody out there to take a very close look and listen to Danyaahla as he refutes himself in the next few moments. Let's listen to what Danyaahla has to say as he completely refutes himself.
You know what? I'm going to take myself out of it because I'm too dark. I have melanin in my skin. I'm too dark. So I'm going to go to his Caucasoid master. Let's see what they say. This is the website called the Jewish Forward, founded in 1897. Let's scroll down a little bit, right? Now, the name of this article is called, Is It British or Ish Brit? This was published December 2nd, 2005. Let's scroll down, right? Now, this is his rant against what he calls so-called British Israelism, but I don't care about that. I want you to pay attention to what I have highlighted right there. Again, the article is called, Is It Brit-ish or Ish Brit? Let's see what the so-called white man that calls himself a Jew, let's see how he breaks these words down. Here's what he says. Of course, any beginning Hebrew student will tell you man of the covenant in Hebrew is Ish Brit, not British. So all he did was he changed the order of the words. He said it's not British, it's Ish Brit. So he doesn't deny that the word Ish means man. He doesn't deny the word Brit.
Did you see Danyaahla completely refute himself? The very article that he thought was going to work in his favor actually ends up completely debunking him, because his whole argument is contingent on the phrase being British. But then the article says it's not British, it is Ish Brit. That's how you would say man of the covenant. My goodness, man. How do you make a video? In all honesty, Danyaahla, how do you make a video where you self-refute yourself in the process? But you know something, Danyaahla? I'm not going to stop here. I'm not going to stop at just this one little point. I'm going to pile it on now, because we're going to read the article that you went to. And then we're going to go ahead and look at some sources to make this definitive. Just give me a moment. Utterly, utterly amazing. Utterly amazing that this guy claims to fact check his claims, but then he attempted to use an article that backfired on him. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go to that forward article. All right, y'all just give me a moment. This is the article right on your screen, as you can see. We're going to go up. See, he didn't want to read this part because this part is essentially just completely adding context to what he was reading at the bottom, even though when he tried to isolate that, it still refuted him. But let's go ahead and read this. Rabbi Samuel Silvers of Boca Raton, Florida, has a short question. Is British related to Brit, the Hebrew word Brit? I take it that this question is tongue-in-cheek. The claim that British comes from the Hebrew words Brit, or covenant, familiar to many of you in its Ashkenazic form bris, and ish, man, so that it means man of the covenant, has been around for a long time, 200 years in fact. It goes back to the beginnings of British Israelites, a movement founded in England in the early 19th century to promulgate the idea that the British people hailed from the 10, actually 9 lost tribes of the northern kingdom of Israel that disappeared from history after being carried off into exile by the Assyrians in the 8th century CE. The British Israel movement was founded by an Englishman, because Danyaahla thinks that there's a difference between British and English, but as I showed in my first video and completely refuted his initial argument, the term British and English are interchangeable terms, indicating one indicates the kingdom of Great Britain, which would be England, which would be Wales, which would be Northern Ireland. And then you have the term English, which is indicating somebody from England. So you can be both English and British at the same time. But don't let this kind of thing, go over Danyaahla's head. I think it already has, because, man, how does somebody miss such an obvious point like that in a video that I made? And yet he decides to isolate a portion of the video that completely refutes him. But I'll continue reading. The British Israel movement was founded by an Englishman named Richard Brothers, who in 1800, let's see, what is that? What is that? About 160 years before One West? 160 years before, more than 160 years before the advent of One West? Yeah. I don't think the white man got this from you. Who in 1800 published a book titled Correct Account of the Invasion of England by the Saxons, showing the English nation to be the descendants of the lost 10 tribes. At its peak in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the movement had tens of thousands of followers. Among the many proofs, quote unquote, offered by it, such as the claim that the stone of Scone in Westminster Abbey was the very stone that served Jacob as a pillow on the night he dreamed his ladder of angels while fleeing from his brother Esau, were a large number of supposed linguistic resemblances between English and biblical Hebrew. I hope everyone's catching the sarcasm here, because it seems Danyaahla wasn't catching any of this. The British British equation was one of the foremost of these. Of course, any beginning student could tell you, or any beginning Hebrew student could tell you, that, quote, man of the covenant in Hebrew is ish Brit and not British. But the British Israelites, just like their Hebrew Israelite counterparts, were never a group to be deterred by even the simplest facts. Brothers himself died in a lunatic asylum, and his disciples, while not necessarily as unbalanced as he was, were no less delusory in their beliefs. Kind of like Danyaahla. So, you know, it is what it is, man. I mean, this alone debunks him, but guess what? I'm not going to stop here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the British Israelite movement. Let's take a look at who these people are. Are these people validating Danyaahla's claim, or are these people essentially the I would say the progenitors of the argument that he's employing, the bad argument that he's employing? Because while he didn't get it from them, he most certainly learned this from somebody who was in some way or another, directly or indirectly, inspired by British Israelism literature. So let's go ahead and do something. Let's go ahead and look at a couple of books here. So this is from the British Israel Myth book. Let's go ahead and look at what it has to say here. This is, I believe, the preface page. Racism is not confined to the secular world. Some Bible-based organizations and churches teach that the white races hold a privileged position and that God specially blesses the Anglo-Saxons. They often also teach that God has cursed the Jewish race. One such justification for racism is called British Israel or Anglo-Israel theory. One particular church that used to teach the British Israel message but has had a change of heart now writes, quote, "It saddens us when Christians erroneously justify their racist attitudes through the misuse and misunderstanding of the Bible." Throughout the American Bible Belt, British Israelism teaching flourishes. These Christian identity, and I'm going to say quote unquote Christian identity groups, as they call themselves, had asserted themselves throughout the United States, Australia, the United Kingdom, and other European nations. Nevertheless, as one author notes, it is astounding how, let me go up again. It is astounding how, where is that part? How little serious attention has been paid to the subject by mainstream Christian denominations. Very similar to the stuff that goes on with Hebrew Israelism, but you know, thankfully more people are starting to pay attention. British Israelism or Anglo-Israelism is a theory that identifies the Anglo-Saxon race with the 10 lost tribes of Israel. It is said that the promises given to Israel in scripture will be fulfilled in Britain, America, and other Anglo-Saxon countries. Not in the way Hebrew Israelites say, but that they believe all these countries are essentially the places where you'll find in white people, because they believe it's white people, European peoples. They think European peoples are the 10 lost tribes of Israel. There are dramatic and real-world implications of the British Israel teachings. Timothy McVeigh, the now executed Oklahoma City bomber, had ties to Elohim City. A bearded former Canadian Mennonite preacher named Richard Millar leads Elohim City. The 75 men, women, and children who live at Elohim City are adherents to the belief in British Israelism. The alleged bomber of the 1996 Atlanta Olympics, Eric Rudolph, had links to British Israelism. The Sydney Morning Herald reads, quote, "Federal investigators believe Rudolph, 36, has had a long association with the radical Christian identity movement, which believes North European whites are the direct descendants of the lost tribes of Israel." The British Israel teaching is incorrect. The Encyclopedia Britannica says the theory of British Israelism rests on premises which are deemed by scholars, both theological and anthropological, to be utterly unsound, end quote. So let's go ahead and look on page 83 of this same book. Let's debunk this British argument, because we already have one source that, you know, completely debunked that, but let's go ahead and look at another one. One theologian, Ron Wilson, has researched the British Israel teaching that the word British is formed from two Hebrew words, berit, covenant, and ish, man. He has discovered that it could not have a Hebrew origin. The word in Anglo-Saxon from which Brit is derived, a word that meant spotted because of their habit, the word in Anglo-Saxon from which Brit is derived from a word that meant spotted because of their habit of painting their bodies. The ending ish means pertaining or belonging to. It is a suffix derived, according to etymology, from an earlier, harder sounding suffix that had a meaning similar as ish. Its earlier spelling then lessens the possibility that it came from Hebrew. As far as this portion that talks about Brit being derived from spotted because of the habit of painting their bodies. This is from Barry Cunningliffe's book, Britain Begins, on page 4. And it reads, "It is quite probable that the description of Britain given by the Greek writer Diodorus Scholius in the 1st century BC derives wholly or largely from Patheas. What is of particular interest is that he calls the island Prytania, Greek Prytanike. That is the island of Prytani or Prytani, or Prytani is a Celtic word that probably means the painted ones or the tattooed folk, referring to body decoration, a reminder of Caesar's observation of woad painted barbarians. In all probability, the word Prytani is an ethnonym, the name by which the people knew themselves, but it remains an outside possibility that it was their continental neighbors who described them thus to the Greek explorers. If we are correct in ascribing the information to Diodorus's description to Pythias, then the inhabitants of Albion were known as Prytani as early as the 4th century BC. Their name Prytania features in the writings of Strabo at the beginning of the 1st century AD. But now the alternate spelling Britannia makes an appearance as well. It was as Britannia that the island was known to the Romans throughout the period of occupation, and so it has remained." So I just wanted that to be on record, lest anybody want to undermine this gentleman in presenting the information about the term Brit. All right. In Hebrew, ish does mean human man, but always means a specific individual person. It is never used of a collective as in people, which would be the word am in Hebrew. It would also be very unusual for this word to be suffixed to another word, such as covenant, and having any meaning such as people. The Hebrew word for covenant, berith, is a noun and never used in scripture as an adjective to modify a noun. If it were, it would follow the noun. Therefore, British could definitely not mean covenant man. It could mean covenant of a man. The word covenant would be in its construct state and mean covenant of. Ish would be without a definite article and thus be a man. If there is a possibility that this name is related to Hebrew, then it would speak of a covenant made by a specific human, not God. Some British Israel authors, in Danyaahla, allow the change from Bredith to Brit because in Hebrew language, vowels are never given in the spelling. In fact, it's even worse for Danyaahla. Let me actually take that back. Danyaahla tries to incorporate Lashuan Kodash into his argument. So he says the word is, Bariyath? But we're going to find out in a moment that that's completely false as well. And it undermines his argument. He ignored that in the first video. That was partially true up until they invented the markings in the Masoretic text. This is significant because during the time of King James, the same King James that Danyaahla thinks is an Israelite, the Masoretic text was around. In fact, that's what the King James translators use for the Old Testament. Even then, silent consonants indicated some of the vowel sounds. Since then, all vowels are included in many copies of the scriptures and prayer books. Most children learn Hebrew here and in Israel by learning it with vowel points. It is a common practice in Israel to leave vowel markings out in adult books, newspapers, and signs, but they have included in their spelling an increased number of silent consonants that indicate the vowels. In any case, the fact that the Hebrew text may not have all the vowels indicated does not have anything to do with allowable pronunciations or transliterations. Let me actually scroll down a little bit more. Berith is the correct pronunciation, and no messing with linguistics can change that to Brit or Brit-ish. All right, but let me go ahead and do something else. Danyaahla tried to say that, well, because he has melanin somehow, because he has melanin that somehow undermines his argument. Well, let's actually present a gentleman with equal amount of melanin as Danyaahla. And so this is a gentleman by the name of Mitzalel. He is an expert in the Hebrew language. He is a legitimate expert. He has degrees in the language. He knows the ins and outs of the syntax and the grammar and anything to do with the Hebrew language. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play his video. Just give me a moment, y'all. And we're going to hear this from, actually, you know what? Before we do that, I want this to be on record that Danyaahla, unless he tries to change up his argument, was actually arguing that British, means, where was that screen? Because I just had it right now. And before I present it, I want to make sure that I got this on my screen. Okay, is this even presenting? All right. So Danyaahla was asserting that British means man of the covenant. That was his assertion. How do we know this is his assertion? Well, I'm going to present it on the screen so y'all can see it for yourself. And then we're going to play him actually making the argument, lest anybody claim that this is somehow false or whatever the case may be. And by the way, for the moderators, if you see any of the trolls in the live chat, definitely hide them. Don't even waste your time. Some people want to argue side topics and they've already been refuted. So let me go ahead and present my screen. All right. And by the way, those trolls wouldn't be Danyaahla. I'm referring to other individuals who are known for coming into these live streams and never staying on topic and always arguing everything except for the obvious topic of discussion. So this is Danyaahla's video, and we're going to listen to him make the argument for himself. Here we go. This is Danyaahla speaking.
The word Brit means covenant, right? The word Ish, or as we say in Lashawan Quadash, Ayash, that means man. So the word Brit-ish means man of the covenant. That's what the word means when you look at the Hebrew. And you got a whole bunch of Israelites that talk about being Hebrew scholars. Well, how come you couldn't break this down? How come you didn't know this? The word Brit-ish is Hebrew. It means man of the covenant. That's what it means.
And there you have it. Danyaahla proving that he has no idea what he's talking about. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and show some comments. This is from Abu. I personally witnessed Arya spout that British argument in Times Square nearly 25 years ago. Arya broke down Irish this way. Iri means angry, Ish means man, angry man. Wow. Talk about faulty etymology. Man, oh man. I mean, just utter folly. Here's another one. Taking the British argument from Anglo-Israelites is awkward for proponents of Lashawan Kodash. It was awkward when Arya did so in the 90s or earlier, and it remains awkward today. Boy, you ain't kidding me. Look at this on your screen, y'all. He's asserting that the term Brit is, what is it? Barayath? And then Ish is Ayash. In fact, for Abu, if you're watching this, feel free to correct me. Definitely feel free to correct me. But this is what I don't understand. So if the term British, according to him, is really, and I could be mispronouncing this, Barayath Ayash, how is the term British being employed as an argument? If, according to him, those two phrases would be quote unquote Yiddish, why is he using the term British and not Barayath Ayash? It's utterly ridiculous. Right, as Abu was saying right here, were they speaking Yiddish? According to Danyaahla, you know, British is Yiddish. So does that mean King James was speaking Yiddish and his translators, more specifically, were speaking Yiddish? Utterly unbelievable, man. You know, I'm going to go ahead and end this thing by playing a video from, you know, a Hebrew expert, unlike Danyaahla, who is inept when it comes to the Hebrew language. And I'm going to go ahead and let him put the nail in the coffin. Let's listen to what an actual Hebrew expert has to say. An African American, someone who would be Judah, according to Danyaahla. Let's see what quote unquote Judah has to say. Let's go ahead and see what Judah has to say. Where's that video? Here we go. Give me a second. Let me actually stop presenting this screen because for some reason StreamYard is giving me difficulty over here. All right, where is this thing? All right, here we go. Give me one moment. One moment, please bear with me. And while I do this, I want to say I harbor no ill will towards Danyaahla. Unlike Danyaahla, I'm not going to wish him ill will, nor am I going to bear false witness on him. I sincerely hope that Danyaahla comes to know Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior before his time on the earth is done. That is my heart's desire, if it be the Lord's will, of course. And that is truly what I desire for him. I don't wish him any ill will. I do not wish to see anything bad happen to him. I honestly would like to see him be saved. All right, so here's my screen. So let's listen to this clip, and then with this, I'm probably going to wrap this up. So let's go ahead and listen to an actual Hebrew expert.
So we were going to basically touch base and discuss construct chains and construct relationships. I think basically there was a video I was viewing, and a person was basically asserting there was a fundamental difference between the English and the British based on, I guess, what the individual was doing. He was operating under the presupposition that British is a Hebrew word consisting of Brit and Ish. So Brit as in the feminine singular absolute noun, meaning covenant or binding, a league, something like that. So, and then Ish, the masculine singular noun, meaning man. So, without coming across as condescending, let's just kind of get to the point. One, British can't mean man of the covenant because that is not the way Hebrew syntax operates as it relates to construct noun arrangement. So nouns typically present themselves in two forms, the absolute and the construct state. So in order to produce man of the covenant, we would need the principal noun man, okay? And we're gonna modify man. So we start out with the principal noun, man, and then we're going to modify it. So we're gonna put man in a construct state, okay? So if we want to say man of a covenant, we would simply say ish brit, okay? Ish brit. Now, if we want to say man of the covenant, it is man of the covenant. So ish habrit. All right. So if you were to say brit, ish, that would be a covenant of man, because the principal noun would then be brit as opposed to ish. So the idea that this individual thinks that British means man of the covenant means that that individual is not really familiar with ancient Hebrew grammar and how it behaves. So again, classical Hebrew syntax is verb, subject, object. We know that. We've been kind of beating that dead horse frequently. And then, of course, again, as it relates to construct noun relationships, you're going to have your principal noun, and then you're going to start building upon that. There are two principal forms, the construct form, the absolute and the construct form. So if you wanted to say the sons of Israel, right, you are going to build upon bonim, which would be our masculine or gender inclusive, plural. And so we're going to go from bonim to b'nai, okay, sons of. So b'nai Yisrael would be sons of Israel. If we want to say a man of Israel, we would say Ish Israel. If we wanted to say men of Israel, we would say Onoshe Israel. Okay, so again, we are building off of our principal noun, and then we are augmenting it, or we're modifying it with a series of nouns. Of course, the last noun in the construct form or the construct chain must be the absolute form. So we could have any number of nouns modifying our principle, but the final noun in that construct chain must be the absolute form. So I believe the person that I put this up was someone named Danielle. I don't remember something on the individuals from the House of David, probably one of the original members of One West. But in any case, somebody was looking to address some of the principal errors that they found in a YouTube video. So they were looking for some clarity as it related to construct relationship. So again, Brit Ish does not mean man of the covenant, because our principal noun would be Brit and is being modified by Ish. So this would be covenant of man, not man of the covenant. It doesn't work that way. Man of the covenant would be Ish Habrit, because we would have to include the definite article here to make sure that listeners and readers know this should be understood to be a definite noun. Okay, so man of the covenant. All right. A man of a covenant would be Ish Brit. Okay, so British doesn't mean man of the covenant. All right, it just doesn't.
All right, so there you have it. You have a gentleman. Oh, all right, can you guys hear me? Hello, hello. All right. Can anyone hear me out there? Can anyone hear me? Oh boy. All right, here we go. There we go. There we go. So there you have it. You have an expert in the Hebrew language who most certainly knows what he's talking about. Let me actually mute over here. Who definitively proves that Danyaahla doesn't know what he's talking about. And just in case Danyaahla wants to make the argument that oh well, because I could kind of see him trying to isolate something that I said in there in one of the books that I read, where the argument was for Berith, and then this guy says Brit. Um, let's just go ahead and take that out the way real quick, unless he decides to employ whatever he wants to do. I'll go ahead and just show it. Not that I have to do this, but still, yeah. You guys can see it there on your screen. That's all I need to say. Berith, whatever. The point is that his argument is faulty. And I take it that Mitzvah is probably utilizing more of the biblical pre-diacritic mark Hebrew versus maybe something like this, which might be more akin to something that might be used in post Masoretic Hebrew. But regardless, let's just for the sake of argument say Brit. Okay, let's just go with that. It's still his argument for Brit Ish is not covenant as man of the covenant. That's not how Hebrew works. And then what makes it crazy is that he tried to make an appeal to, was it Isaiah, was it 42, where the word Brit Am appears. And so Am being the word for people. And matter of fact, he doesn't realize that there's a definite article there. Actually, let me pull it up real quick. Let me pull that up, and then I'll definitely wrap things up. Of course, he ignores the definite article. Okay, let me get this screen up. Give me a second, y'all. Please bear with me. Okay, here we go. Actually pulling up the relevant text as we speak. And so, all right, give me a moment. And with this, I'm probably going to end things. I was actually expecting this to be a little shorter, but you know, so many things had to be brought out to kind of, you know, to kind of just bring correction to this gentleman. Oh yeah, so it's Isaiah 42:6. That's what it was. So I'm going to go ahead and post this on my screen. I mean, I don't really have to do all this, but you know, I just find the argument to be just really poor. I mean, so here you have the relevant word, right, with the lamed as the prefix, and I guess he ignored that part. I wonder why he didn't incorporate that into. Anyways, not that it mattered, but because he was making an appeal specifically to Isaiah 42:6, unless he just wanted to take the relevant word, um, you know, Brit or Berith, and try to make an argument. But still, you know, it's funny how he's making recourse to the Hebrew text and then making recourse to the same pronunciations that he asserts are Yiddish. But this is one last thing I wanted to point out. Danyaahla says that, you know, that, because he said it in his video that, you know, I didn't play this part, and I really don't feel like going back and looking for it. But in the video, he basically says something to the effect of, you can't use the ish suffix because for, you know, Jewish, because that just means sort of like, but British means covenant or man of the covenant. So why can't the ish suffix in Jewish mean, you know, man of Judah? Why couldn't that, not that it would be said that way, it would be Yehuda man or Jew man or whatever the case may be. Why can't the same argument be employed? Why? Because it's a term that you have disdain for, which, by the way, that was debunked in the first video. You didn't really address that, Danyaahla. Yeah, so Mithila has tons of videos on Lashawan Kodash, the Ewe, Gabare, and has occasionally gone live with proponents of those systems, usually with him encouraging them to parse a Hebrew text. Could you imagine Danyaahla trying to parse a Hebrew text live on there? No disrespect, man, but Danyaahla would struggle mightily to try to parse anything in the Hebrew text without, you know, utilizing something to, you know, like a Strong's or something. Not even Strong's. Like what, you know, like these guys are making recourse to Strong's, man. They only gives the root word definitions. But you know, and I just showed that earlier just for the specific pronunciation. But I typically tell people it's better for you to learn the language, and it is true. You know, I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I just think that when somebody doesn't know something, they should probably stop arguing it. You know, Danyaahla should really stop arguing for something that he has no idea what he's talking about. Anyways, what I wanted to say is, you know, Danyaahla, I forgive you for the disrespect that you tossed my way. You were absolutely wrong. Bearing false witness is a sin. I'm not a homosexual. I did absolutely have a father who raised me and instilled great morals and values in me, because he is the man who truly inspired me to get into the Bible even at an early age. So yes, I absolutely had a father, and I have shown my face. So your arguments are really irrelevant at this point. Mods, if you could, there's an individual there in the chat. His name starts with an A. Can you go ahead and just hide him from the broadcast, because this is the individual I was talking about earlier, who, in all honesty, he's a troll. It's really no point in having a discussion with him. We've tried having discussions with this guy. He refuses to have cordial discussions. So definitely, if you can, just remove him if you haven't already. But anyways, I'm pretty much just gonna wrap things up, man. And just wanted to say, you know, for those of you who are truly interested in the Hebrew language, I would highly recommend really learning the language. There's tons of material out there. It's not hard to find. Um, Guys like Mitzvah are offering services. If he gives me a website or something, I can go ahead and provide in the description for those of you who are interested in actually learning Hebrew. And also for those of you who hold to Lashawan Kodash, I want to actually show something on my screen before I end this broadcast. So we've actually made several videos debunking Lashawan Kodash. And so this would be the relevant playlist. And so I'm going to go ahead and show this on my screen. And anybody who's interested in refutations against that fraudulent dialect, you can go ahead and let me actually do this real quick. All right, here we go. All right, so this is the playlist. Anyone who's interested in refutations for that dialect, which is modern Hebrew, not even Hebrew. It's a fraudulent Hebrew dialect that purports to be ancient Hebrew, but is in fact modern Hebrew with many of its syntaxes and grammar based on modern Israeli Hebrew, ironically enough. So here are all the videos in the playlist. We have been refuting this thing for a while now. Certainly check it out. Of course, it's called Lashawan Kodash Debunked. Anyone who's interested, check that out. Danyaahla, I definitely think you should check that out. And yeah, man, that's pretty much it. You know, I'd like to thank everybody out there. We kind of did go 50 minutes. It's kind of funny, man. You know, it's a lot of craziness out here these days. So, you know, Danyaahla, man, put the pseudo scholarship down. Step your research up, man. I don't mean that in a way that I'm not intending to disrespect you. I sincerely would hope that you would actually start fact checking the things that you say. And there's so many other things that you get wrong, man. When I get the time, I'm going to refute that Dark Ages series that you produced a few years back, because it is still false. It still has tons and tons of disinformation. And I think that you're doing a disservice to people by presenting disinformation. I don't think it's in your best interest to be doing that. So with that being said, I hope this has edified someone out there. God bless you all. Actually, before I do that, was there any comments that I missed? Let me make sure. Any comments? Any comments? No? Any comments in here? Okay. Well, oh, actually, one last thing. I was kind of mentioning it earlier. So again, I don't understand how someone makes recourse to the ish suffix, meaning man, when it's convenient, but then when it has to do with a group that they have disdain for, then it becomes sort of like when the ish suffix indicates nationality. Anybody can look this up in Webster's dictionary. Literally, the ish suffix, the first definition, it literally means to denote nationality, right? So the term British is for a person who is a citizen, or someone who was born in Britain, the United Kingdom, whether this be England, whether it be Wales, whether it be Northern Ireland. And English indicates a person who was born in England. Okay, just as Jewish means someone who is from Yehuda, from the tribe of the Jews, or can even be a convert, because the term can be used for either. But it literally means one who is of the Jews. So I just find it telling, man. These guys aren't even thinking about, like, British. Let's make fun of actual Hebrew until we have to make arguments where we have to actually incorporate actual Hebrew, and then Lashawan Kodash just kind of gets put under the rug, and then we'll just pretend that our pronunciation system doesn't actually undermine our argument, right? Yeah. So Barayath Ayash. Why didn't King James label his country? Why didn't he call the country Barayath Ayash? If everybody was that was an Israelite, whoever lived spoke Lashawan Kodash. I mean, I don't know. It's just something to think about. But anyways, I hope this has edified somebody out there. God bless you all, and until next time, take care.